Hello, this is Creepy Stories, and I'm here with another story for you. Those souls who walk among us do not cross into the eternal rest of the afterlife for a reason. Their restless spirits have an unfinished business in our world. This morning started just like any other for our young protagonist. While performing his usual routine, his mind was already on his work tasks. He was always an excellent student, and his job did not pose a real challenge to him. His colleagues quite liked him for his charming and friendly, yet decisive personality. Some of his female colleagues were particularly fond of him. However, the tastelessness of the fruit which is obtained with ease, or for some other reasons, he did not prefer his attractive partners. He always attracted females from an unknown environment. Only once, many years ago, did he break this loudly unspoken rule. But on this particular morning, the unique beauty of his new colleague made a crack in this shield that changed his life forever. Her positive and gentle radiance immediately attracted the boy. The delicate features of her face and her small, feminine gestures reminded him of his old love. Only the cold ran down his back from her ocean-like, clear blue eyes. This shiver lasted for long minutes, which at a certain point was no longer a pleasant feeling. He felt like someone put their cold, insensitive, tiny, fragile hand on the back of his neck. Then this invisible something leaned so close to our protagonist that its mouth almost touched his ear. This short distance was easily covered by the soft, yet cruel message arriving on the wings of the cold air. The boy had never felt anything like this before. His increasingly long sighs only give way to the pain that felt like pinpricks all along his spine. 5 minutes is not much, yet it seemed like the longest minutes of his life. But as quickly as it arrived, the phenomenon from the unknown also quickly disappeared. By the time our protagonist got home, he had already forgotten the unexpectedly occurring malaise. For the rest of the day, he got close to the newcomer while he tried pretending that nothing had happened. The boy almost always got everything he wanted, and he only believes in what he can see with his eyes and touch with his hands. According to his philosophy, every person is a candle, which if it burns out once, then it is over forever. He does not believe much in the afterlife and unexplainable spiritual appearances, yet every candle leaves some smoke and shadow. But now he is interested in a completely different kind of game. Many of us participate in this game, but not as well as he. He wants to get the new colleague for himself at all costs, for whom he is willing to break his only rule. The perfect timing cannot be rushed, but he feels that he simply could not wait more than a few days. During the lunch break, he gives his trusts to a few precisely targeted half-sentences and the carefully prepared expensive watch and suit combination. He slowly calms down, as he only has to wait 7 hours until then. As he falls asleep, an old movie ends in which a strange-faced big man dances a dance of terror at a sunset. In his dream, the girl also appears in a beautiful, transparent white dress. Her skin is white and her hair is blonde. The light dominates the room. Our motionless protagonist is constantly watched by her gaze, almost bewitching. The unearthly air coming from deep down. It slowly surrounds the hot, living body found in the room. Weightlessly, lightly, the girl's transparently white, lifeless hand's touch is almost felt everywhere. The cautious and aimless touches are slowly replaced by stronger movements. The boy's chest slowly makes their way up to the throat. Here, finally, strong pliers intertwine with the thin, rigid fingers. The boy panics as the white demon slowly squeezes the air, and with it the life out of him, the sound of his choking. It goes around the room. He tries in vain to knock off his faintly glowing attacker with his arms. The creature's body is transparent and physically completely untouchable. Unexpectedly, but at the last moment, it finally lets go of our protagonist. A living person would certainly not do this. Perhaps we can only understand what the spirits existing in the spirit world do, and why when we are one of them. Our protagonist woke up in his bed after experiencing unexplainable events. Even minutes later, he is still panting heavily and unable to pull himself together while he suspiciously scrutinized the room. Tired and tense, he staggers out to the bathroom. When he finally straightens up, a person of a completely different personality looks back at him from the mirror world than this morning. That night he could not, or rather did not, dare to sleep. The next morning, our protagonist storms into his workplace, not in the condition as usual at all. During the night, he thought several times about taking some of those strong pills that he never uses, but at times like this, perhaps due to imagination, fatigue, or slowly emerging paranoia, he always sensed some small change around him, which prevented him from it. He arrived early, but almost immediately bumped into the new colleague. Much earlier and much clumsier than planned. As a result of the accidental contact, our protagonist finds himself in a strange, dark, deserted, ruined place. He does not control his body and movements, but fully experiences the intense, suffocating fear. The foreign body is fleeing from someone or something. The painful screws and sharp plates that pierce his bare foot cannot stop him. This fragile, white-dressed body finally crosses the huge hall. It arrives in a courtyard that seems to be completely fenced off. The only way leads back to the harsh darkness. Apart from his desperate panting, nothing makes a sound in the area. His heartbeat is so strong and fast that he feels his head is going to explode. Suddenly, something grabs his throat from behind. The attacker is a cruel, dark spirit in which terrible passions rage. The last images of the defenseless victim's life is a logo of a deserted factory site. Our protagonist wakes up on the ground after his vision. He does not give an explanation for his behavior. He just runs away confused. He decides at any cost but to put an end to the visions. The relentless twilight slowly defeats the day when our protagonist reaches his destination. The cold surrounds him. It embraces and controls him. He did not need a map to find this place. He grew up not far from the area, but he never thought he would return voluntarily. This factory was already closed then, abandoned building system, which is the cemetery of the restless memories and the cruel sin. It was a popular target for adventurous local boys. Many years ago, the boy also brought his love here to confess his deep feelings. That particular day was the end of his childhood, because until then, he suppressed his feelings, which took shape in the secret depths of his mind, in himself for a long time. But then the tempting feelings slowly overpowered him. He was so happy that he could finally be himself. This sacred place was the new beginning of his life. The long-drawn commemoration was no longer tolerated by the afterlife. A familiar, glowing figure appeared in the depths of the factory site for a moment. Its disappearance tempts our protagonist to follow the purifying apparition. It splits the huge courtyard in two. It flies quickly through the cruel obstacle field. Finally, it arrives at the dark depths, which was never his home. Our protagonist also runs into the scene, with an expression on his face that he would never show to the world. He does not wait. He does not waste time with reassurance. With a thorough inspection of the room, his eyes flickering in dense gloom, only see the apparition. He wants to finally choke the smoke and shadows of the past. At the first decisive step, a rotten board placed there many years ago breaks under him. As our protagonist is forever swallowed by the darkness, the apparition, in the form of a sharp, upward beam of light, can now leave the border of our worlds. The boy lies broken next to the earthly memory of the girl, who was last seen alive by him. Thank you for watching. Have a great life and watch your back.